It is hashtag Indictment Day for Donald Trump. That is right. In a spur-of-the-moment decision, it seems they've gone from taking all of April off to voting for an indictment in about 24 hours. And the usual people are screaming at the usual things. This is a developing story happening only about an hour ago, maybe a couple hours ago. So we will be talking about what's happened there, what is currently happening with that, and also what the government is trying to distract you from by doing this. Interestingly enough, I actually didn't think they had the balls to go through with this after I heard what else was happening today, but apparently they did. And in that sense of other news, protests in both Kentucky and Tennessee are both overrunning the Capitol buildings of both states. The Tennessee actually one does look like they were able to turn around and get some arrests in and calm it down, but Tennessee appears to be still going on. So we'll talk about both of these insurrections and why they are not insurrections and what is going to be the aftermath of some of that. A Raymond, Minnesota train derailment causes fires and causes an evacuation notice, which has been lifted at this point, so we'll be talking just a bit about that and what's happening there. And Jacob Chansley is out. After the footage is released, it appears that Jacob Chansley is set to be released 14 months early from prison. It is going to be all this and more, maybe because we have a lot of big news and a couple big stories. I was the one flying balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So we're a little bit behind tonight because I was traveling for a funeral, unfortunately, and, the man that I was celebrating the life of lived a very, very long life. This wasn't a plucked out of the prime of life situation or anything. Someone close to our family, someone is part of the reason that my family lives over here in large part. So, yeah, we had to go do that. Then, I got through redacted and realized that it was 4 already, or 5 already rather, and I still wasn't home, so I knew that I was going to be running behind. I had no idea that the indictment had come down until I got home. And basically this changed the entire show that I had planned, because I'd been kind of paying attention to the news all day, a little bit here and there. The funeral home, not the funeral home, it's a little one-room church in rural Wisconsin, where there was absolutely no cell service because it was in the middle of a valley. I didn't have anything going on there while I was at the funeral and the celebration and everything else, but I saw the Insurrections in Tennessee and Kentucky, and I thought that was going to be our top story for the day. Nope. I got home and I saw blasts in the Discord, I saw blasts in the other Discord, Twitter, and everything. I saw hashtag Indictment Day. I'm like, no way. There's no way. I thought they were going to wait for a month for this. So we'll be talking about the indictment. We will be talking about the insurrections in Tennessee and Kentucky. We're going to try to get to the train derailment that happened on the western side of Minnesota as well, and a whole lot more here. And we are going to go late tonight, by the way. I started really late, so we're going to go late tonight. We might go to 9 because I had dinner on the way home. When I saw what time it was going to be, I stopped at a Quick Trip and grabbed burgers and cheese curds. So, I don't have to sit down and have dinner tonight after this. We might go until 9 just to get some of this stuff done here, because there is a lot over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming, such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks Podcast, and more as we bring you a better news and culture experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. For too long, we have had too much of our news, headlines, and politics coming from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses. No more. Instead, get your news from people who have had to make some of the same decisions that you have, people who are like you, people who look at the situation out here and instead of wondering which politician, which rich bitch is going to get richer, poorer, or thrown in prison, just sit and wonder how they're going to keep putting food on the table. So we'll be talking about that. And yes, I admit we are going to be talking about which rich bitch is going to be put in prison, or attempted to put in prison as well. But go check out all that great programming. Let's get into the main news of the day and get started. And we're going to start with finance. Quickly. I do have 2 layoffs articles today, but still, with everything else that's on the stack right now, there is no reason for us to spend a whole hell of a lot of time on the news and finance here. So let's blink through what we have here. Looking at the Dow, which had an up day again today, it did dip down below the previous close line briefly about the middle of the day, but it clawed its way back up to about where it started from on the futures, to 32,859.03. So it's looking like Wall Street is winning right now. The fear that came from what was happening with SVB may be coming out the window here, but we will continue to watch this and see what happens with this and where this goes. Looking in at your Bitcoin, which spent the day up, but kind of clawed its way back to where it started from the day before at the end. We had a spike that almost got to 30,000, got above the 29,000 mark at one point here before that quickly dropped back off to steady in the middle of the 28,000s, and then dropping back down below 28,000 to 27,929.50. I guess that's down, that's not up. That's weird. I thought the previous line was down here somewhere. Anyway, the Bitcoin, now that I've corrected myself, lost $430 and 70 US cents, or about 1.52% on the day. So that is what we are at and where we're sitting with that. Looking in at the gas prices in the Madison, Wisconsin area, we're still seeing 340s across the board. In fact, I played 390 today for gas, but that was because I got 2 gallons in and realized the fact that, oh crap, I was putting premium in. My truck doesn't run worth a crap on premium. It doesn't. It'll run off of it. Most of your vehicles will, but it doesn't run worth a crap on it. So I stopped what I was doing and put $30 worth of regular back in at still an exaggerated price here, but on the Isthmus we have 320 and 330. Otherwise, again, just like yesterday, just kind of zoom out and zoom in and go around the Madison area and you see a 340 just about everywhere else that you go. So this may reflect what is happening in your state or your neck of the woods, and it looks like it's going to be going up here. So brace yourselves, and I hope that you guys made preparations beforehand. Let's grab one from IBD today. Dow futures, NASDAQ tops 12,000 with inflation report due. Big news for Tesla. I don't know why this thing waits until I'm reading. I mean, this article has been up for 20 minutes, and it just now decided to give me the advertisement. Let me drop this down just a little bit here. From Ed Carson, Dow futures were a little changed after hours along with the S&P and the NASDAQ futures, with attention turning to the Federal Reserve's favorite inflation report, the PCE price index. Air Test Systems headline earnings after the close. The IRS on Friday could limit U.S. tax credits for entry-level Tesla Model 3. The stock market rally extended Wednesday's strong gains with modest gains. The Nasdaq closed above 12,000, while the big-cap Nasdaq 100 hit a 7-month high. Leading stocks rose, although many paired intraday gains substantially. Mercado Libre, Analog Devices, ASML, which is not ASMR, and Ulta Beauty made bullish price moves. The market rally is now a confirmed uptrend, so investors should be taking advantage, gradually adding exposure. Bank stocks fell modestly Thursday, with Chuck E. Schwab down solidly, while banking fears have ebbed. That remains an elevated risk for investors, at least in the short run. Mercado Libre is on the IBD leaderboard. Analog Devices is on Swing Trader. Mercado Libre and Analog Devices are on the IBD 50 list. ASML, not ASMR. And Analog Devices are on the Big Cap 20. The February PCE index is due at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Analysts expect the PCE index and the core PCE to show 0.4% gains after the January's 0.6% increase. Wall Street expects the PCE rate to cool slightly to 5.1 from January's 5.4, but core PCE inflation is likely to hold at 4.7. The Fed has long favored the PCE inflation data over the consumer price index. Recently, Fed Chief Jerome Powell has highlighted services prices, excluding energy and housing, as a key inflation gauge right now. The inflation figures will influence market expectations for Fed rate hikes. Investors are split over whether there will be another quarter-point hike on May 3rd. Spoiler alert, there probably will be. The PCE inflation data is part of the monthly income and spending report. Personal income should rise about 0.3% after January's 0.6% gain. Spending should edge up about 0.2 after jumping 1.8 in January, which is not as good of a news as they want you to believe. So that's what they have off that. Quick look on the futures. Dow futures lost a fraction versus fair value. The S&P were flat and the Nasdaq edged lower. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. All right, let's grab the layoffs report. 2 of those coming up here. Streaming device maker Roku to cut 200 jobs in a second round of layoffs. But don't worry, everything's fine. Roku will lay off 6% of its workforce, or 200 employees, in its second round of job cuts. The U.S. streaming service device maker said sending its shares up nearly 3% before the bell on Thursday. In a bid to lower expenses, the company also decided to exit and sublease office facilities that it did not currently occupy. Is that a thing? Is there a thing? Is there a situation where companies like Roku are actually sitting out there and occupying spaces that they don't normally occupy, or holding on to spaces they don't normally occupy? If I was a business leader, I would have gotten rid of anything that I wasn't occupying. Because number one, that's money that I don't have to shell out to rent or pay taxes on or anything else like that. And number two, if it's something that I owned, then I can make some money off the sale of the real estate. Roku had in November cut 200 jobs in the US, where companies led by technology giants such as Meta and Amazon are bracing for a potential economic downturn amid rising borrowing costs around the world. Job cuts in the U.S. tech sector hit 63,000 in the first 2 months of the year, according to data from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas Incorporated. But don't worry, everything is fine. Roku, which had about 3,600 full-time employees as of December 31st, expects to incur charges of between $30 million and $35 million related to the restructuring. Majority of the restructuring charges would be incurred in the first quarter of fiscal year 2023, while the job cuts will be completed by the end of the second quarter, the company said. So that's Roku, and then I've got one from the LA Times. Again, not really so much. Like, I would normally save this for another day, but I wanted to take a victory lap on this one. Just like I did with NPR. ABC News senior managers are out amid Disney layoffs. From Stephen Battaglio. ABC News is undergoing a major executive shakeup as part of the company-wide layoffs at Walt Disney. Several top managers with decades of experience were among the people inside ABC News who were cut on Thursday, according to people who were familiar with the details but not authorized to discuss them publicly. The high-level cuts sent shockwaves through the division. While these actions are never easy, there is a necessary step to ensure that we're on footing for the years ahead as we chart sustainable growth-oriented path forward for the entire organization, ABC News President Kim Godwin said in a staff memo obtained by The Times. The cuts are part of Disney's plan to eliminate 7,000 jobs as part of a wider effort to rejuvenate the Burbank entertainment giant's finances and reach profitability at its streaming business. High-level executives such as Marvel Entertainment Chairman Ike Perlmutter, who was laid off on Wednesday, had been affected by the moves that began this week. A total of 50 ABC News staffers are expected to be let go in the round of layoffs. Personnel cutbacks have become almost a daily occurrence in the media and tech industries as companies try to curb expenses amid a difficult economic environment. Godwin is using Disney's cost reduction edict to reshape the management structure at ABC News, leading to the departure of a number of long-timers. So, yes, ABC News, in all of its wokeness, is losing. And I find that actually a little bit entertaining. Alright, we are done with our finance segment. Let's get into the main news of the day. We all know what it's going to be here. Starting with CNN and their reporting. Gerard Monnier says CNN reports historic breaking news. Former President Trump has been indicted by a Manhattan grand jury in connection with the hush money payment scheme. This is the first time a former president has been indicted in U.S. history. Exact charges are unknown, and that's going to play a little bit into this, and what I actually think is happening here. And that is the fact, again, that the exact charges are unknown. We know that there are charges. We know that there's actually an indictment, but nobody knows what the charge is. So, let's listen.
CNN breaking news.
We have major breaking news, indeed historic breaking news right now. CNN's Kara Scannell is in New York for us covering this story. What are you learning, Kara?
Well, three sources tell me, and my colleague John Miller, that a Manhattan grand jury has indicted former President Donald Trump in connection with the hush money payment scheme. This indictment is under seal, according to sources, and the exact charges are not yet known at this time. But this investigation has been going on for a long time. The decision to move and seek and get an indictment of a former president is the first time that has been done in U.S. history. This could have a significant impact on the presidential campaign. But as I said, we do not know the exact charges yet. We expect those charges to be made public in the coming days. And at some point in the near future, former President Trump will have to come to this courthouse and be arraigned. Wolf?
CNN breaking news.
We have major break.
So, for the first time in U.S. history, a U.S. president has been indicted. We don't know what the charges are. In fact, this is highly under seal. Some of that actually makes me wonder if this means that they don't know what the charge is yet. They just thought that they had to do something, and do something quick. I don't know. And this all happened so fast because, remember, I just got home at 5:30. And I was finding out about this for the first time. I intended to right now be halfway through what was happening in Tennessee, with Kentucky, of course, going first. I intended for that to be the top story in what's coming up here. And on a whim, I had to come back over and change everything about this. And again, the first thing that I asked is, I asked it on Twitter too, are they sitting out here? Are they looking for a reason to basically turn around and try to distract or incite another insurrection at the Manhattan DA's office or the Capitol or something else like that? That's a big thing here, because we have what would be considered in any other situation an actual insurrection going on in Tennessee and Kentucky. And yet we didn't hear a word about any of this. And everything is under seal. Like, nobody knows what this charge is going to be until the Donald goes up and gets arraigned, and, part of that is Do we know? Does the grand jury even know what they're arraigning on right now, or are they still trying to come back up with it? I don't know. Some other video of this. Brennan Murphy audible gasps let out at Fox Studio as they announced the indictment news.
Here, we have just gotten word former President Donald Trump has been indicted by a grand jury in New York. Trump was under investigation by the DA's office for his alleged hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 campaign. Here, we have just gotten word former President Donald Trump.
Yeah, that gasp out there. I don't know if that was the producer, the camera person, or what. Maybe the person who's doing the boom, but I mean, it is shocking. Some more Jesse Waters is fuming. This cannot stand. Something feels terrible.
This cannot stand. I actually agree with Jessica. This doesn't feel right. Something feels terrible.
You know, GOP candidate Vivek.
This cannot stand.
Other reactions here. This is like getting Capone on unpaid taxes, except even lamer. Sad thing is, Trump is probably never going to be held accountable, and if he is, it'll be for something like this instead of the many other horrendous acts that he's committed. Which, and I don't know what I wish we know what they got him for. I think that the leftoids think that it is because somehow it was illegal for him to stoop a porn star. Which, if that was what it was for, that would be really stupid. Let's read from the Post-Millennial. New York City. DA Bragg expands Trump inquiry to include alleged payoff to Playboy model. Manhattan prosecutors investigating Trump's involvement in the alleged payout to porn star Stormy Daniels are also looking into an alleged $150,000 payment made to a former Playboy model who claimed to have had an affair with a former president. Since January, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's office is presenting evidence of Trump's involvement in a $130,000 payment to Daniels. However, the same prosecutors have also extensively questioned grand jury witnesses about Karen McDougal, Playboy magazine's Playmate of the Year in 1998, who alleged she had a 10-month affair with Trump in 2006. The prosecutors could use the evidence related to McDougal to either bring charges directly related to her payment or establish a pattern of behavior by Trump, reports the Wall Street Journal. The people involved in both deals claim that Trump played a significant role. However, a spokeswoman for Bragg declined to comment, and a lawyer for McDougal did not respond to requests for comment from the Journal. A spokesman for Trump also did not comment immediately. Trump has dismissed the investigation as a witch hunt and denied any wrongdoing. So, looks like we've got a couple things that are moving in place here. Fox News being the first one to report the actual indictment on today's stack. Trump indicted after Manhattan DA probe for hush money payments from Brooks Singman. Former President Trump has been indicted, possibly as part of a Manhattan DA's office years-long investigation into hush money payments. The charges stem from the $130,000 hush money payment then Trump lawyer Michael Cohen made to adult film star Stormy Daniels, whose legal name is Stephanie Clifford, in the weeks leading up to the 2016 election in exchange for her silence about an alleged sexual encounter with Trump in 2006. Federal prosecutors in the SDNY opted out of charging Trump related to Stormy Daniels' payments in 2019, even as Cohen implicated him as part of the plea deal. The FEC also tossed its investigation into the matter in 2021, which is going to make this interesting, by the way. Because the only way to up this to a felony is to make this into a campaign finance thing. We've talked about this before. If this is the charge, that's the big problem, is we don't know what the charge is. But if this is the charge, it's going to be very, very hard to link this and bring this up to a felony and make this even chargeable. Because the federal DOJ on a federal crime declined to pursue this. Bragg, when he took over as DA, stopped pursuing charges against Trump and suspended the investigation indefinitely, according to one of the top prosecutors who resigned from the office in protest. Mark Pomerantz and Carrie Dunn, prosecutors who had been leading the investigation under former DA Cyrus Vance, submitted their resignations after Bragg began raising doubts about pursuing the case. Trump earlier this month cited reports which were based on what he called illegal leaks that suggested he could be arrested on Tuesday, March 21st. Trump posted about these reports on his Truth Social, leading the House Judiciary Committee to intervene, demanding Bragg testify before the panel. Lawmakers and allies of Trump blasted the investigation as political prosecution and a weaponization of the office of the DA. Let's see. Robert Costello, former legal advisor to Michael Cohen, testified before the grand jury last Monday that Cohen was a serial liar and testified that Trump did not know about the payments made by Cohen to Daniels. So, again, it's all up in the air as to what this is, other than possibly a distraction. We'll be talking about that in a bit. I do have some stuff that I want to go over to this, but we're going to go up to this one here from Matthew Colkin before we're actually talking about what's more importantly happening in this country. The liberal media making its rounds. The Associated Press. Trump indicted first ex-president charged with a crime from Michael R. Sisak, Eric Tucker, and Colleen Long. A Manhattan grand jury has voted to indict Trump on charges involving payments during the 2016 campaign to silence claims of extramarital sexual encounter, his lawyer said on Thursday. Is that what they did, though? Do you have a scoop here that Fox doesn't have? Producing the first criminal case against a former U.S. president and a jolt to Trump's bid to retake the White House. The indictment is an extraordinary development after years of investigations into his business, political, and personal dealings. It's likely to galvanize critics who say Trump lied and cheated his way to the top and embolden supporters who feel the Republican is being unfairly targeted by a Democratic prosecutor. In a statement, his lawyers Susan Nicheles and Joseph Tacopina said, "He did not commit any crime. We will vigorously fight this political prosecution in court." The DA's investigation centered on money paid to porn actor Stormy Daniels and former Playboy model Karen McDougal. Trump was expected to surrender to authorities next week, though the details were still being worked out, according to a person familiar with the matter who was not authorized to discuss a matter that remained under seal. Which is why I don't know if they actually have what the indictment is over, because it's still under seal. In bringing the charges, the Manhattan DA is embracing an unusual case that had been investigated by two previous sets of prosecutors, both of which declined to take the politically explosive step of seeking Trump's indictment. In the weeks leading up to the indictment, Trump railed about the investigation on social media and urged supporters to protest on his behalf. Full stop. Stop. Back up the bus right now. This is as good of a point as any to insert this. In the next few days, there are going to be talks on Twitter, on Facebook, on probably your Instagram at some point. There are going to be commenters. Many of them are not going to have profile pictures, or profile pictures of a sports team, or a dog, or a flower, or maybe a gun. You're not going to see their faces on their profile pictures. You're not going to see their names. Their names are going to be MAGA1, Patriot, and things like that, who are going to tell you in comments that we need to, as patriots, go back and take this country back from the evil leftists who have taken it over. We have to go in and make our voices heard. We can't stop by just posting online. We have to go into the DA's office. I'm here to tell you that those people are wearing a wire. Do not, under any circumstances, travel to Manhattan. If you do, you will be charged. First, they will ping your cell phone, and then they will look through all your social media and see if you've ever once been in support of any Trump policy, even if you are vehemently anti-Trump. But at one point, you said the tax cuts were good. They will ping your phone. They will go through your social media. They will find out that you had one pro-Trump opinion ever in your life. And you will go to jail And eventually, after they've cooked up a charge against you, you will sit in front of one Alvin Robert Bragg. Do not go to New York and protest. I would advise the young Republicans to stay away. Stay far, 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 far away. Yes, I understand that your protest was peaceful up until now. Get out of Manhattan now. And if you do feel that you need to go there and protest, which I will advise you do not do, or if you need to go to the U.S. Capitol and protest, which I would advise you do not do, or if you need to go down to your state house and protest, which I would advise you do not do, then watch for the person who's wearing the sunglasses, who is unusually fit, and handing the brick and saying, "Hey, fellow patriot, let's make our voices heard," because that person will be wearing a wire as well. Do not put yourself into a situation where they can turn around and use this against you. They both want to persecute you for going and supporting the outside man, the evil man, and also take away your right to vote by hanging a felony over your head and making it impossible for you to do so. Do not play their game their way. Their people will get turned out in a second and probably have their charges dropped. Your people will go to... Actually, they'll sit in solitary for 2 years while they're still cooking up a charge. Do not go. It's a trap. Alright, Trump faces other potential legal perils as he seeks to reassert control of the Republican Party and stave off a slew of one-time allies who are seeking or are likely to oppose him for the presidential nomination. So, we will see. And again, I'm waiting to see what the charge is. The Hill, showing everybody into their corners. From the Hill, Democrats hail, Republicans blast Trump indictment. From Michael Schnell and Emily Brooks. The indictment of former President Trump by a Manhattan grand jury rocked Capitol Hill on Thursday, with Democrats hailing the decision and Republicans blasting what they described as a political witch hunt. The indictment of a former president is unprecedented, but so too is the unlawful conduct in which Trump has been engaged, tweeted Adam Schiff, who served as lead impeachment manager during Trump's first impeachment trial. A nation of laws must hold the rich and powerful accountable, even when they hold high office, especially when they do. To do otherwise is not democracy. I don't want to hear a fucking thing from Adam Schiff about democracy. Excuse my language. Some Democrats, including Financial Services Committee ranking member Maxine Waters, expressed their excitement on Twitter. "Donald Trump finally got indicted. I predicted he would. I predicted he would too, and I'm still not in favor of it. Unlike Maxine, Auntie-Maxine, who's out here touching herself over this. I predicted that Stormy Daniels would get him. Sometimes justice works." Republicans, meanwhile, jumped to criticize Bragg, with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy pledging to hold Alvin Bragg and his unprecedented abuse a power to account for this injustice, which, to Kevin McCarthy's detriment, I would not have said that until I knew what the charges were. Unless you have some advanced copy of this, these are under seal, and you don't know what this charge is. I anticipate that it's going to be bullshit. And you'll notice too, by the way, that I haven't come out and said that this is a political persecution or a witch hunt yet. I anticipate deeply inside myself that it is, but I need to see what the charges are before I can say yes or no. And the evidence. My initial assessment of the situation comes from the fact that they have been trying to find something to put this man in prison for since 2015. It's, again, it's a matter of you bring me the man and I'll find you the crime. Alvin Bragg has irreparably damaged our country in an attempt to interfere in our presidential election, McCarthy tweeted. As he routinely frees violent criminals to terrorize the public, he weaponized our sacred system of justice against President Donald Trump. Jim Jordan, chair of the House Judiciary Committee and an ally of Trump, summed up the Republican reaction in a one-word tweet. Outrageous. And Steve Daines, the chair of the Senate GOP campaign arm, called the indictment a political prosecution. It's more of a persecution. So, everybody into their corners. Marjorie Taylor Greene took a more aggressive approach. Our side, Chance, lock her up. And their side's going to get a mugshot based on a witch hunt. It's time to change that. Gloves are off. Greene tweeted, telling all of her supporters to come back and tell her how they feel about this, right into her chest, directly and clearly. I still think that that one's a plant. So that is some of the reaction to this. Some reaction around New York from NBC4 New York. New York City ramps up security again ahead of possible grand jury action against Trump, police sources say. From Jonathan Dienst, Melissa Russo, Mark Santia, Courtney Copenhagen, Jennifer Millman, Tom Shea, Miles Miller. And by the way, a reminder, because I see that Luke Wee and DM Ryan are both here already, and possibly another person lurking that I haven't seen pop into the chat yet. We're going to go a little bit late today. I got behind because I attended a funeral this morning, and as it stretched on into the later day, it took me a bit of a while to get back home, especially with the rain. So I actually didn't get started until about 6:30. I'm going to go until at least 8:40. We might go till 9. I got dinner at a Quick Trip, which if you are not in the Midwest, you should try that sometime. Come up here and try that sometime. Get dinner at a Quick Trip. So I'm good to go for the rest of the night. I do need to take a shower before I go to bed because I've got to go to work in the morning, but let's keep reading. New York City is gearing up security again for possible action from the grand jury against former President Trump. Multiple law enforcement sources familiar with the preparation said on Thursday. Stressing the situational fluidity, the sources said the ramped-up security is related to the DA's ongoing investigation into hush money payments. It's unclear if the grand jury will be asked to act before they go on a planned break next month, which they apparently did. The NYPD previously directed officers of all ranks to wear uniforms on patrol and prepare to deploy as necessary. Except for the ones in the crowd who are going to be handing out the bricks and saying, "Come on, fellow patriots, we must go back and take back this country." You know that they're going to be there. And again, with this happening, I'm going to remind everybody that I posed the question when this was first happening of how do they decide who's going to be holding the doors open? Is that by a seniority? Do they draw straws? How do they decide who's going to be entrapping the masses? But late last week, the NYPD rescinded its directive that every officer report for duty in uniform in case of a potential Trump indictment or related protests as situations changed and the grand jury heard from other witnesses. David Pecker, who was the witness at Monday's grand jury hearing, NBC News confirms. He is the former CEO of an American media and publisher of National Enquirer. This was his second appearance before the grand jury. So, security's ramping up. Again, remember, there are going to be people in that crowd who are going to be coming out here and saying, "Yes, we need to come back and take back our democracy. Won't you come with me, patriot?" And handing you a brick to do so. It's a trap. Remember that. From NBC, a little bit of live updates. CNBC, rather. Dan Mangan, Brian Schwartz, Jacob Pramuk. Wow, I can read today. The New York grand jury voted to indict former President Trump in connection with a hush money payment. We don't know that. Trump media merger, partner stock jumps. Shares of DWAC, a blank check company that agreed to merge with Trump's social media firm, surged during after hours trading following news the former president was indicted. Because a lot of people are probably going to be running to Truth Social because they want to hear what he has to say. DWAC has encountered its own legal difficulties. Prosecutors and regulators are investigating the deal with Trump and the technology group, the parent company of Truth Social. Last week, the company fired its CEO, Patrick Orlando, who had been at the center of the intrigue. DeSantis says Florida won't cooperate with extradition requests for Trump. We'll probably be talking about that later on. I do have a tweet from DeSantis that I want to talk about, and I think it's a little bit of too little too late. I mean, it sounds great coming from him, but it's too little too late. But it's on things that I like, so we'll talk about that at the end of the show. DeSantis, the governor of Florida and likely 2024 GOP candidate for president, said he will not assist on an extradition request for his rival Trump hours after the former president was indicted. The comments came minutes after NBC News reported Trump will surrender to the Manhattan DA's office earlier next week, citing Trump's attorney Joe Tacopina. That's the Twitter post we're going to be reading from later. Presidential hopeful calls indictment un-American. Vivek Ramaswamy, long-shot Republican presidential hopeful, called Trump's indictment un-American. So, some live updates with that. From Politico, a reaction to what people are trying to say with this. Stop overthinking it. An indictment would be bad for Trump. Why? Yes, the Trump diehards can be expected to rise up against Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, which is basically Politico saying, come on, you come down to Manhattan, you won't do it, no balls. But that still wouldn't earn him a single additional vote. From Alexander Burns. The widely expected indictment of Trump in Manhattan has all the makings of a political disaster for him. It should be the climactic event at a years-long saga involving marital infidelity, sleazy financial dealing, and now the first ever criminal charge against a former American president. Naturally, the question arises, could this actually be good for Trump? That thought generates itself by a reflex in America's political brain. It's a habit forged in 2016, when Trump defied countless terminal prognoses to defeat Hillary Clinton. It is not irrational speculation. Americans have a history of sticking with flamboyant politicians, with more than a passing relationship with the criminal justice system. From Marion Barry in D.C. to Edwin Edwards in Louisiana. Trump is a character from a similar mold, with an even tighter grip on his followers that verges, at times, on the quasi-mystical. At another point in his political life, perhaps Trump might have turned this case into rich fodder for a comeback. Not now, for all his unusual strengths. Trump is defined, these days, more by his weakness. Personal and political deficiencies that have grown with time and now figure to undermine any attempt to exploit the criminal case against him. His base is too small, his political imagination too depleted, and his instinct for self-absorption too overwhelming for him to marshal a broad, lasting backlash. His determination to look inward and backwards has been a problem for his campaign. Even without the indictment, it will be a bigger one when he's indicted. I don't think you realize what this looks like from the outside. And even some of the uninitiated are looking at this and seeing what this is. Dershowitz. Matt Couch tweeting out, Alan Dershowitz on Trump indictment. They made a foolish decision, which will cause the case to be thrown out, I think, on a statute of limitations grounds. Let's listen. This is from Newsmax, so take this with a gigantic grain of salt. Yeah, Steve O.B.O. Patrick says they don't care, they just want to be able to say he's been indicted. Which is probably true. Actually, I know it's true. What the citation can be for that one is the fact of, well, it's the same thing that they say about the impeachment. Although he's been acquitted twice, they still come out and scream out, twice impeached! They don't even do that for Bill, who had a much stronger case against him at the time. But let's listen to what Dershowitz has to say.
I think the most important thing is they indicted him when he was out of New York. And that means they could have indicted him within the statute of limitations when he was out of New York. Statute of limitations is way expired. They claim they couldn't have indicted him because he was outside of New York, but now they've indicted him when he's not in New York. So they've made a foolish decision, which will cause the case to be thrown out, I think, on statute of limitations grounds.
And so if you're his lawyer right now, what do you make a motion now? Do you wait until the process gets a little bit further? What is the next step?
You make a motion immediately to dismiss on statute of limitations grounds and on the grounds that the alleged crime doesn't fit the misdemeanor or the felony. Now, I haven't seen the indictment, obviously, so I'm talking in general terms. But in general terms, you make a motion to dismiss on both statutory grounds and statute of limitations grounds. And the statute of limitations grounds should prevail. Now, the New York Court of Appeals has had very negative rulings on that, so it's impossible to predict what will happen.
That's an interesting aspect and avenue of it as well, because while they're doing a state crime as a misdemeanor, they waited until he wasn't a resident of the state and likely not to be going back to that state. So there is that aspect and avenue of things as well. Let's see, what else do we have here? Dinesh D'Souza with Trump's response from his official Donald Trump office. The Trumpiest of Trump offices. Trump responds, hashtag Trump indictment. So we're going to read this in its entirety. Statement by Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States of America. This reads very, very Trumpy, by the way. This is a political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. From the time I came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower, and even before I was sworn in as your President of the United States, the radical left, the enemy of the hardworking men and women of this country, have been engaged in a witch hunt to destroy the Make America Great Again movement. You remember it just like I do. Russia, Russia, Russia. Mueller hoax. Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Impeachment hoax 1. Impeachment hoax 2. The illegal and unconstitutional Mar-a-Lago raid. And now this. The Democrats have lied, cheated, and stolen their obsession with the trying to get Trump, and now they're doing the unthinkable, indicted a completely innocent person in an act of blatant election interference. Never before in the nation's history has this been done. The Democrats have cheated countless times over 3 decades, including spying on my campaign, for weaponizing our justice system to punish a political opponent who just so happens to be a president of the United States, and by far, by very, very far, the leading Republican candidate for president, has never, ever happened before. God bless you, and God bless America. Again, this is a big part of the reason where I look at this and I say, before I make a decision on whether or not this is a bullshit charge or not, I need to see what the charge is. We all have the anticipation. We all think it's going to be the Stormy Daniels thing, but we have no idea. And that is something to keep in mind when we do this, is that we have absolutely no idea what this is going to be. But if this is what we go down to, and again, this comes down from the idea of a you bring me the man and I will find you the crime sort of mentality off of this. They are using justice departments against a political rival. From WGAL 8. Lawyer, Trump will vigorously fight grand jury indictment for hush money payments. From Michael R. Sisak, Jennifer Peltz, and Eric Tucker of the Associated Press. Trump, who's denied any wrongdoing, has repeatedly attacked the investigation, called the indictment political persecution, and predicted it would damage Democrats in 2024. In a statement, his lawyers, Susan Chalice and Joseph Tacopina, said, he did not commit any crime. We will vigorously fight this political prosecution in court. The DA's investigation centered on the money paid to, well, yeah, we know about this one here. So, there's going to be a fight. And the last one that I have on this, and then we're going to move on and talk about what they're trying to hide from this. Because arguably what I'm going to start into after this last tweet that we have going on here is probably bigger news than the Trump indictment. But it's going to get swept under the rug because the Donald has the amazing ability to suck all the air out of the room no matter what happened right before. So, and this is actually probably one of the better political takes. Now, most people would look at this and think this is just grasping at straws, trying to get the, just one weird way that he could get out of this sort of thing. Actually, this would probably politically be the best thing that Kathy Hochul could do. But she's not going to do it, and I guarantee you she's not going to do it because she's blinded by political partisanship. Why do I have something playing in the background here? Why do I have audio?
Reports
going?
out this evening that...
Shut up, you. Matthew Colkin tweets out Kathy Hochul should pardon Trump before this political prosecution does irreparable damage to this country. That is not the worst idea in the world. And I'm going to tell you why that's not the worst idea in the world. This will give Kathy Hochul the opportunity to come up and say, we're a democracy. We don't want to fight a civil war. We don't want the MAGA people to come back out here and storm this building or that building. We don't want the fights. We don't want anything else. And we don't want to win this way. We want to win at the ballot box. We are confident in our platform that we can win at the ballot box. We don't need to use the Justice Department to go after our political enemies. But of course she's not going to do that because they're not confident in their abilities. And in fact, they do need to use the Justice Department to go after their political enemies. That would probably be the best political move. And she would probably garner a lot of support from independents for doing so. They might even be able to elevate her to president if she did that. But they don't have the political foresight for that. All right, let's talk about Kentucky and Tennessee, which arguably should be what we're talking about. Starting with what started here from Just the News. Kentucky legislature overrides governor's veto of transgender care restrictions. From Ben Whedon. I hate their autoplayer, by the way, I really do, because it makes it almost impossible to read the article on the screen resolution that I have, and I need a much better video card to get better resolution. The Kentucky legislature on Wednesday overrode a veto from Andy Beshear, pushing through a bill restricting access to gender-related treatments and limiting the use of bathrooms in schools. The bill comes in the immediate aftermath of a mass shooting in Nashville, in which a transgender individual killed 3 students and 3 faculty members at a Christian school. By the way, because I call the other side out on this, I do have to say to you, Just the News, that's editorializing. The Senate voted 29-8 in favor of overriding the veto, while the House did so by a 76-23 margin, the Associated Press reported. We cannot allow people to continue down the path of fantasy, where they're going to end up 10, 20, 30 years down the road and find themselves miserable from decisions that they made while they were young, Republican Rep. Shane Baker said on Wednesday per the outlet. The bill bars minors from receiving certain gender-related treatments and requires students to use bathrooms in line with their biological sex, rather than gender identities. It also restricts discussion of sexual topics in schools for students of all ages. Numerous Republican-leaning states have pursued comparable legislation in recent months, but Tennessee doing so shortly before the violent episode in Nashville. So that's what started this one. And coming to us from our friends across the pond, the BBC reports Kentucky's new LGBTQIRAGIXTBYOUMTILUXTBYAILTI sometimes Y law ignites protests. You know, this was going to be my top story, I was actually going to lead with thinking that and reminding you, I think that Tim Pool watches Contemporary. Because he's been saying an awful lot lately. Things that I say on Contemporary just years later. He brought up the fact, because he was talking about this earlier, I was hate listening to Tim Pool earlier. And he brought up the fact that there's a possibility that all this transgender stuff that they're trying to push through and force through right now has to do with eugenics and trying to sterilize people. Which is, by the way, for long-time watchers of Contemporary, something that I said a year and a half ago. When I realized that all these hormone blockers made people sterile, and the surgeries made it so they, even if they blew a load, couldn't pass on their DNA. From Brandon Drennan. Republican lawmakers in Kentucky voted on Wednesday to override a governor's veto of a bill Democrats in the state have called the most extreme anti-LGBTQIRAMIGXTBYOUTIMIRAXTBY, sometimes Y, bill in America. Republicans say the new law, which includes a ban on transgender medical treatment for those under 18, is meant to protect minors. Protests erupted in the State House and 19 were arrested. It follows wider U.S. legislative efforts relating to the trans community. Hundreds of LGBTQIRAMIGXTBYOUTIOLEIXTBY, sometimes Y, rights protesters gathered outside the State House in Frankfurt. According to the local media, inside, loud chants emerged from locked armed protesters, some of whom were later handcuffed and arrested on criminal trespassing charges after being warned. They yelled, "When trans kids are under attack, what do we do? Say no, fight back." Holy shit, they got a new line. The bill, SB 150, bans transgender medical treatment for minors and restricts discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity in schools. It bans transsexuals from freely using bathrooms, locker rooms, or shower rooms that match their gender identity. I love the soft language that the BBC is trying to put on this, trying to make this into a, well, if you don't let them shower with the girls, they're gonna kill themselves. It allows teachers to refuse to refer students by their preferred pronouns, and requires doctors to stop treatment for patients who are already undergoing a transgender medical treatment. Bashir, a Democrat, vetoed the law on Friday, and in a statement said it stripped down the freedom from parents and would cause an increase in suicide among Kentucky's youth. Republican legislators in Kentucky hold a supermajority, however, and swiftly overrode Mr. Bashir's veto with a 76-23 vote in the House and a 29-8 vote in the Senate. Max Wise, a Republican and the bill's sponsor, said the purpose of the law was to strengthen parental engagement and communication with children's education while protecting the safety of our children. And again, as I've long said, if you are transsexual now and you're 8, and it's a real thing, not something rapid onset, you will still be transsexual when you are 18. At which point you can no longer come back and go after your parents for malpractice or putting you through a horrifying transition that you are now detransitioning from. Yeah, I know it's going to suck to go through puberty and suddenly have your identity erased and suddenly be interested in girls or boys or whichever way it goes. I know that's going to suck for you. But you are not in your right state of mind when you're in puberty at 13 years old. I can tell you that from experience. From the post-millennial. Transurrection! Which, by the way, why the hell do they always do demon horns? I mean, I know it's demonic what they're trying to do to kids, but why do they always do demon horns? Seriously? Trans activists storm Kentucky Capitol, protest law prohibiting child sex changes, several arrested. No author given. Hundreds of protesters descended on the Kentucky State Capitol on Wednesday, as lawmakers enacted a sweeping ban on sex changes for minors after overriding the veto of the Democratic governor. Under SB 150, doctors are prohibited from providing hormone therapy and other gender-affirming treatments to anyone under the age of 18. Legislation was passed by a Republican-controlled legislature last month, and Andy Bashir vetoed the bill, calling it an attack on the transgender community. Well, here's some of the protest. Transgender protesters scream and chant after storming the Kentucky Capitol. Shame. Shame. By the way, and we'll go through this because it's only 15 seconds again, but this seems a lot more like an insurrection than what they're trying to label as the Capitol Selfie Fest as. Why is it always demon horns? And I always find it entertaining to be hearing the word shame screamed from people who have no shame. And we've got more here. On Wednesday, lawmakers returned to the state capitol for the final days of the 2023 legislative session. And we've got more video here. Ricky Sayer. Police in the Kentucky State House are forcefully removing people who are protesting SB 150, which they consider to be an extreme anti-trans bill. All right, let's do this one first. I believe these people occupied a federal building with the intent of changing the government. I believe that's an insurrection, is that not? According to the Courier Journal, hundreds of teens joined other activists from across Kentucky in the state capitol in Frankfort to oppose the bill. Of course, my first question here is how many came from out of state as well? And that's a fair question, by the way. I don't want to hear anybody say tinfoil hattery or this or that the next thing. That is a fair question, given what just happened in Georgia, what happened in Minneapolis, and what happened in my hometown of Kenosha. That is a fair question. A group of people who support SB 150 turned to us and say, as they were leaving the gallery as the chants against the bill erupted in the Kentucky House chamber. This is what, worse than January 6th, one person said. This is an insurrection, another said. Let's watch.
This is what worse than January 6th. This is an insurrection. Yeah, this is an insurrection. This is
Kentucky State Police removed several protesters for refusing to remain silent during the proceedings in the House as lawmakers discussed overturning Beshear's veto of SB 150. Some of the protesters locked arms and chanted, "Trans kids are under attack." According to the outlet, they were also removed and arrested.
We have created an environment of hate, and then we look at them like there's something wrong with them. First you hated black people, then you hated Jews, now you're hating everybody. So the question is, when it's the only people left are you, will you hate yourself? Power concedes nothing. This house is for the people, by the people, to serve the people, and you won't listen. You go after everybody's kids but your own. You make hate the way to go as long as it's not applied to you. You have to ask yourself the question, why would they be doing that? Who are we to cause that? None of us said we would come here and hurt people, and yet you make trades and policy so your bills can be heard. You go against the people of this state. This is a horrible...
Boy, politics really is theatrics for ugly people. Hollywood for ugly people, that is what it is. I haven't seen overacting like this since season 3 of the original series of Star Trek.
horrible sentiment. This bill is horrible because it
Oh my God!
Hundreds of Kentuckians who oppose the bill were in the room, in the hallways, in our offices, in this gallery. I'll tell you who's scared. Trans kids and their parents and the people who love them, who are about to have life-saving medical care ripped out from under them by an insanely out-of-touch legislature. I've heard we need to stop genital mutilation. Guess what? It's not happening. You can stop worrying about it. Lastly, I've heard the Kentuckians overwhelmingly support this.
Okay, if it's not happening, then what's the problem with passing a law banning it? Honest question.
That's weird, because the only legitimate poll we have says Kentuckians overwhelmingly oppose the legislature coming into their homes and into their families and into their doctor's offices, saying what they can and cannot do with their children. They're their kids, not yours. Your parental rights stop at your doorstep, or worse, my doorstep. They don't come into this Capitol. I've got 500 friends here today in opposition. This is dangerous policy passed by poor process, supported by junk science. We should not override this veto.
Hollywood for ugly people. There continue to be protests outside the chamber. Vote them out. So with the occupation, and this, of course, coming with the occupation of the Capitol from Act 10, which is also mysteriously not an insurrection, I want to see what the bill comes to for the damage to the Kentucky State Capitol for this. Bet you it's in the millions of dollars. So that's some of their theatrics there. We've seen this one already. Thank you, Sobiek, for that. The Lexington Herald Leader writing, Kentucky State Police arrest 19 people at Kentucky Capitol protesting anti-trans health bill. By Austin Horn and Tessa Duvall. Several people protesting a controversial bill banning gender-affirming care for trans youth were arrested at the Kentucky Capitol on Wednesday. The arrest came as the House took up the matter of overriding Andy Beshear's veto of Senate Bill 150. In a statement Wednesday, the Kentucky State Police confirmed that 19 people were arrested at the Capitol. Kentucky State Patrol gave each individual the option to leave without any enforcement action or be placed under arrest, KSP spokesperson Captain Paul Blanton said in a statement. Because they were, by the way, while they were causing a disturbance in the state capitol, they were non-violently at this point, even though this was more of an insurrection than anything else. They were protesting in a situation like this. They were causing a general nuisance and trespassing, but they were protesting and exercising their First Amendment right. That's why they were given the option to not be enforced. But part of the problem with this is these people, they want to be put in jail. They want to be political martyrs. Like, the police legitimately came up to you and said, hey, do you want to go to jail or not? And these kids said, oh, hell yes, put me in jail, and I will write my manifesto from jail. Austin Horn says security's not using zip ties to remove protesters who had locked arms. And I can't watch that one because it's this one's archived. Let's grab one from Fox. Pro-trans Kentucky protesters arrested after swarming state capitol amid House vote to override Beshear's veto. Nearly 24 people were arrested and cited for criminal trespassing at the Kentucky Capitol on Wednesday after protesting a bill the bluegrass state pushed by Republicans to ban transgender procedures for minors. The protest, which came as the State House vetoed to override the Democrat Governor Andy Beshear's veto, of SB 150 resulted in the arrest of 19 people, according to a statement shared with Fox News Digital from Captain Paul Blanton, a spokesperson for Kentucky State Police. The Sergeant-at-Arms requested that KSP assist in restoring order that day to the House Gallery chambers. KSP gave each individual the option to leave without any enforcement actions or be placed under arrest, Blanton said. KSP arrested 19. They have been cited for criminal trespassing third degree. The Franklin County District Court authorized that the individuals could be released on their own recognizance. Again, for the most part because they are redressing grievances with the government. They're causing a general nuisance to do so. And I do understand where both the Kentucky Republican Party and the Kentucky State Police do outline where protest is legal, and you're right, but still without causing a general nuisance, which could lead into more rage, more violence. You know, when you get these angry people up here and they're shouting over and over again, and feel like they're still not being heard, or feel like they're powerless to stop it. I mean, when does it stop? When does somebody go back out and grab a brick or something? And furthermore, there's no bail on these people either, so they just come back in. They're probably going to pay a fine, a couple $100 for trespass, and call it a day. Not that most of these people have a couple $100. From WKYT, protesters escorted from House Chamber as anti-trans bill becomes law. I think we just have video for this one, otherwise it's all review.
Intense moments at the Kentucky State Capitol today as the General Assembly voted to override Governor Andy Beshear's veto of controversial legislation that opponents call anti-transgender.
From rallies and protests outside the Capitol to even shouting at lawmakers in the chambers, emotions ran high today. WKYT's Chad Hedrick now is in studio with us, and we have learned that 19 people were actually arrested today.
Yeah, we saw those dramatic images and video coming out of the House today. Kentucky State Police say this all happened in the House of Representatives up in the gallery. They say the Sergeant of Arms requested their help to restore order. Troopers say the protesters were given the option to leave without any enforcement or they would be arrested. Now those 19 have been cited for criminal trespassing.
Disorder in the Kentucky House of Representatives Wednesday as lawmakers voted to override Governor Andy Beshear's veto of Senate Bill 150.
We have created an environment of hate, and then we look at them like there's something wrong with them.
As House Democrats stood on the House floor, dozens of protesters standing against the legislation shouted chants. 19 were arrested and escorted out by Kentucky State Police. The arrests came.
All right. Interesting thought that actually came up with this too, by the way. In addition to, like what I said earlier with Tim Pool, I guarantee watches Contemporary because he says the same thing that I say, only like a year later. But also with what's happening in this now, and a thought that was brought up on Twitter the other day that I responded to. And the idea was, you know, transsexuality has been around for years. Drag, it's something we've all been entertained by for years. Homosexuality, honestly. And so much more of this has been accepted by mainline conservatives. And I really honestly think that some of this was being pushed, both the drag queens and then also trying to get the kids on puberty blockers, and changed over into being trans at a young age as kids, even going as far as 3, 5, 6, etc., because they're looking to piss off the Republicans. And that's my thing. You know, the Democrat Party always needs a permanent underclass. That has been true for as long as there's been a Democratic Party. They need to work for a permanent underclass. When blacks stopped being underclass, well, first off, they tried to keep them as an underclass. When Hispanics started coming over and becoming the second and third generation Hispanic, and not needing the Democrat Party anymore to get ahead because they were getting ahead on their own. When homosexuality started being accepted by mainline conservatives. And no, I'm not just talking about Lindsey Graham. These underclasses went away So now we come back and introduce transsexuality, which legitimately, with the homosexuality being accepted by mainline conservatives who wanted less government, the vast majority, except for the extreme religious sect of the Republican Party, of which I'm friends with many, probably looked at a lot of that and said, "Oh, I don't care. You want to chop off your wiener? Why? I mean, more power to you, but why?" So then they needed to find something else to go back and outrage a conservative over, and they started trying to get kids to chop off their wieners, or boobs, whichever case that it may be. Always need a permanent underclass. They always need to tell women that they're a permanent underclass, that they'll always be subjective to their husbands, and forced into the kitchen unless the Democrat Party comes in and steps in. I think this was specifically designed to make the conservatives angry. And now we move over into Tennessee, but before we do, I wanted to share a weird exchange on the House floor. Thomas Massie and Jamal Bowman getting into it on the House floor over gun control, based on what happened in Tennessee, before what we're about to talk about in Tennessee. Let's watch.
Children at all. Cowards. Pressure them. Force them to respond to the question, why the hell won't you do anything to save America's children? And let them explain that all the way up until Election Day of 2024. Let them explain it all the way up to Election Day on 2024. They're freaking cowards. They're gutless. They're not here. I'm talking about gun violence.
You know, there's never been
I'm talking about gun violence.
in a school that allows teachers to carry.
Carry guns? You think
would you
more guns lead to more death? More guns lead to more death. Look at the data. You're not looking at any data. You're carrying the water for the gun lobby. Look at the data. More guns lead to more deaths. Guns, states that have open carry laws have more death. States that have open carry laws have more death. Are you listening to what I'm saying? Calm down, children are dying. 9-year-old children. Because the solution is not arming teachers. Have you ever worked in a school? 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 It's a yes or no question. Have you ever worked in a school? You will not answer my question. Don't stop and talk to me. Okay, I'll bring it down a notch.
All right, folks.
Have you ever worked in the school?
I've got a bill to repeal the federal...
I worked in the school for 20 years.
You're just screaming.
I was a teacher. I was screaming before you came and interrupted me. I worked in the school for 20 years. So I worked in the school 20 years.
In every school,
I was a teacher. I was a school counselor. I was a middle school principal. I was in cafeterias protecting kids every day of my career.
There's never been a shooting. Never been a shooting. It's time. Look, we've got guns here to protect us. And we believe the kids should have somebody to protect them. Every school that's allowed it has never had a shooting. Not even an accidental discharge at any of the schools. So. Yeah, absolutely. Next week, I'm reintroducing.
Apparently CNN, by the way, is reporting that falsifying business records, 34 counts, is what this is going to be, which, by the way, are all misdemeanors. So we'll probably be talking about this tomorrow, definitely. I don't know what CNN got, and again, we haven't seen any of the indictment off of this, but yeah, it doesn't even seem like any of this. This is the go after tax fraud when you have nothing else avenue of things. All right, let's talk about Tennessee. From WKRN.com. Parents at Tennessee State Capitol demand gun control from Caitlin Huff and Chris O'Brien. Thousands have turned up at Tennessee State Capitol Thursday morning to face lawmakers as they started the legislative session at 0900. That is, by the way, in the regular time zone of Central. Parents with their children and other community members said they're rallying support to support stricter gun control in the wake of the Covenant's shooting that left 6 people dead, including the children and 3 adults. We're here because we still believe that we can make a change. We can. It's a tough state. I get it, said organizer Mariam Abul-Fazli, a simple mama who said she refuses to accept irrational policymaking. Instead of chanting, Abul-Fazli plans for them to sing, stand up for your rights. The group of protesters reportedly outnumbered the available seats in the Capitol Rotunda. The group filled the hallways and steps of the Capitol building. For the first time since the shooting, Republican leaders answered the questions from reporters. Even if we had the California most restrictive ban on weapons in the country, when you have someone who is willing to die and kill other people, you cannot stop them, the Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, said. News 2's Chris O'Brien asked, what do they think the answer is to stopping school shootings? I guess there's 2 parts to it. One is school security, and the other is individual and mental health, answered Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally. Notably absent from the conversation, guns. As the state continues to respond to the horrific tragedy, the rift between Republicans and Democrats grows. This is so editorialized, it's insane! We believe in people's rights, but we also believe in the safety of our children and families are the most important and should be everyone's priority. We need to put common sense regulations and laws into place to better protect communities, said John Ray Clemens of Nashville. And there are ways that we can do that, Rep. Clemens continued. Democrats blasted Republicans for the response, saying there's a need for tighter gun legislation. I own firearms. I'm a lifelong hunter. Other members of my caucus own firearms. By the way, this is the as a gun owner argument, which usually precedes the stupidest gun take on the face of the planet. We're not asking to take anyone's guns or violate the Second Amendment. We're just asking for common sense ways to take away people's guns and violate the Second Amendment. Protesters formed a tunnel outside the House chamber, forcing lawmakers to walk through them, though at least one lawmaker told News 2 it doesn't change his opinion. You're not being heard, you're just creating pink noise that's getting drowned out. I don't think any legislature hears, regardless if you're on the left or right. If you're going to stand and act a fool, you're not going to be heard, said Jeremy Faison of Cosby. From WSMV4, NBC, Protect Our Kids, parents rally at the Capitol days after Covenant school shooting. 3 days after the Covenant shooting took the lives of 3 children and 3 adults, people are demanding change. Parents and their children rallied at the Tennessee State Capitol on Thursday to advocate for stricter gun laws. An interesting thing that was pointed out, by the way, I listened to Razorfist's video on this earlier on. It happened to pop up on my BitSlide timeline when I was driving home. And he pointed out something I think most of us missed. And I think that the indication here was supposed to be that this was supposed to be a straight white male right-wing or straight or white right-wing thing. I noticed it. I saw it, but it didn't click in me. The shooter, Audrey Hale, when he, she, it, they, them, they, zir, zem, went in to shoot the school, he, she, it, they, them, they, zir, zem, was wearing a bright blood red MAGA style hat. It wasn't actually a MAGA hat, but it was a MAGA style trucker hat, vented in the back with a straight brim. I went back and I looked at the video before we got started today, and sure enough, that was in the same style as the Make America Great Again hat. Which tells me there was another motive behind this. The group chanted "Protect our kids" and demanded gun control. They met at 0800 on the steps along Martin Luther King Boulevard across from the Legislative Plaza. They then headed to the state capitol where they planned to get to the second floor and sing. Advocates voiced their concerns regarding stricter gun laws to lawmakers as they head to session. So we're probably going to see a little bit of what this looked like. Let's skip this one over here. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. With some details here, a group of around 400 rushed into the Capitol in Nashville on Thursday to protest for stricter gun laws following the mass shooting at Covenant this week. Around 500 gathered at 0800 before a large group of them moved into the Capitol carrying signs and shouting, "No action, no peace. What do we want? Gun control. When do we want it? Now." I'm going to refresh this because I think there's video that goes along with this that we need to go back and watch. And it didn't load the first time, so let's see what we have coming up here when this does this. We still have the Posobiec tweet, but the other one didn't load. Let me see what happens when we do this. Oh, that tweet's been deleted. That's why. What happened to the story I had? Hold on, let's go grab the history. Must have been because I didn't put it into a new window. Thank God for technology. But we do have one from Posobiec as well. Breaking: leftists storm Tennessee Capitol.
No action, no peace! 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 Talking about protecting the Second Amendment, but we have not seen a bill after bill from the House about protecting children's schools. Do something! Instead of providing them resources, we're talking about providing them guns. Instead of stopping the NRA legislation that we know is killing people, we are seeing
Insurrection, I tell you. A Tennessee nonprofit called Awake planned the protest. The group seeks to improve conditions for women and children, according to the New York Post. We've collaborated with community organizations and individual citizens to organize a rally at the state capitol Thursday morning. If you're looking for a way to channel your grief, anger, and confusion into this action, please join us, Awake wrote in a social media post earlier this week. Also in attendance and joining the protesters, 3 Democrat state lawmakers joined protesters invading the Tennessee state capitol from Houston Keene. 3 Democratic lawmakers in the Tennessee State House joined a pro-gun control protest who invaded the state capitol following the tragic Monday shooting in Nashville. Chants of "No justice, no peace" and "Save our children" echoed through the Tennessee House of Representatives chamber as pro-gun control protesters posted up both sides inside and outside the state capitol building. 3 Democrat state lawmakers, Reps. Justin Jones, John Pearson, and Gloria Johnson, brought the Tennessee lower chamber to a halt when they joined in chanting with the protesters. "Power to the people," Jones yelled through a megaphone on the chamber's floor. The protest followed a Wednesday night candle vigil for the 6 people slain at the Covenant School in Nashville. Protesters called for an assault weapons ban in the wake of the mass shooting, and federal lawmakers representing Tennessee are taking action. Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty, both Republicans from Tennessee, announced Thursday that will be introducing the Securing Aid for Every School Act following the mass shooting. The bill would create a $900 million grant program for both public and private schools to train and hire former law enforcement officers and veterans to increase security for students. But this is an insurrection. One of the tweets has already been deleted as well, so let's look at some more of this here. We saw this one. A group of insurrectionists just stormed the Tennessee Capitol. We watched that one earlier from Posobiec. Spencer Lindquist with a thread of some of the action here. We'll look through some of these. Spencer Lindquist says mayhem protests in the Tennessee Capitol blocked a bathroom, preventing a legislator from exiting. State troopers got involved. And they're sitting here screaming, "He didn't do anything! He didn't do anything!" That's false imprisonment, number one, and arguably kidnapping, if they're going to block him into the bathroom like that. Yeah, he did. And by the way, you're lucky you didn't catch a felony for that. Some more. Here's a video the reporter deleted of the chaos inside the Tennessee Capitol. That's the lead off to this widely circulated video. Let's watch. All right, well, here's the legislator entering the bathroom while protesters scream at him. And it's, again, by the way, it's just a reminder here that we're actually seeing legislators walking through a sea of protesters go hit the can, whereas a group of unarmed people who were calmly walking through the velvet ropes caused every lawmaker in our country to go fleeing for show. It's an insurrection. Again, this is arguably more insurrection-y than anything that happened on January 6th.
Our states!
when the protesters decided to hold a moment of silence, I think we've got just one more of these after this, there was a disagreement over how many victims the Nashville shooting had. Some held up 6, others held up 7 to commemorate the trans shooter as well.
Every death is a tragedy, y'all. It's 7 lives.
I'd say there were 7 victims now.
Yep. Every death is a tragedy, y'all. It's 7 lives.
And the last one from Lindquist, "Our blood, your hands" was one of the rallying cries of the protesters.
Our blood, your hands. 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 Our blood.
I'll give them some credit. They're at least using a different chant. All right, what else do we have? From Greg Price. And we watched this one already, so we don't have to listen to them scream anymore, but yeah. Greg Price says, an insurrection is currently underway at the Tennessee State Capitol building. If you can look at what happened on January the 6th in 2021 and scream insurrection, then, again, I don't know what you call this. You have a group of violent political fanatics who have taken over and occupied a building, and again, have held somebody prisoner in a bathroom. Newsweek. Fact check. The transgender community stormed Tennessee Capitol. From Nick Reynolds. No, it was mostly parents. On Thursday, hundreds, if not thousands, of protesters took to the streets surrounding the Tennessee Capitol to demand stronger restrictions on firearm purchases in the wake of a school shooting in Nashville this week that left 6 people dead, including 3 young children. The rally, which began at 0800 Thursday, began in a nearby park with a crowd planning to head to the second floor of the Tennessee State House to sing songs and interface with Republican lawmakers about the protesters' desire for stronger gun control following the revelations that the Covenant school shooter, 20-year-old Audrey Hale, had purchased firearms legally. You don't want to go down this road. I'm telling you.
It's the other side of the building where they're still trying to come in. Yeah. I think we can do both.
Is that a true sign? I mean, did Blackburn take $1.3 million? How can they do that?
Yeah. You can see the amounts from the pharmaceuticals.
All right. Let's see, the fact check. Is there an insurrection happening in Tennessee? Tweeted Charlie Kirk. Will these kids be thrown in a gulag? Will the FBI arrest hundreds of people in a dragnet? Will we have special committee on this? Oh, I missed a paragraph. Things grew more heated as the day went on that afternoon. Video of protesters rushing the doors of the Tennessee State House quickly circulated among conservatives on social media, including prominent voices like TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk, who saw this episode as a left-wing insurrection comparable to January 6th. Even more claim the protests were led by transgender activists who have drawn the ire of conservatives after it was revealed Hale was transgender. A coming Trans Day of Vengeance to protest over laws seeking to outlaw gender-affirming surgery and LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYOUMTILU, sometimes Y-friendly events like drag shows has been lionized by the right, for example, amid baseless claims from some who say that Hale may have taken hormones to facilitate his transition, which could have been a primary contributor to the shooting spree. Thursday's protests in their eyes extended from that. The claim, did the transgender community storm the Tennessee Capitol? The facts, while some equated what happened Thursday to a left-wing reprise of January 6th, a cursory investigation revealed that Thursday's incident was anything but, says left-wing Newsweek. While the crowd, primarily made up of people in their teens, according to the video from inside the State House, did grow heated at one juncture, photos taken within hours of the protest showed the halls of the State House were cleared of protesters a little bit past lunchtime. So it's exactly like January the 6th. Right now, the Capitol is basically empty except for members in session, some staff, a few protesters, and scattered media members. Jackson Lell, legislative staffer, tweeted early Thursday afternoon, "Yeah, don't believe your lying eyes." After the protesters subsided, please do not spread this disinformation. Wow. They will come right out, and they will do whatever they can. Kelly Gibbs says, I deleted last week because it wasn't clear. This was a peaceful protest. Students, parents, and their supporters went through the Capitol security to lobby for gun control in the Capitol. No one was arrested. The shoving started when THP needed to make way for lawmakers. These people forget that we watched. All right, we're going to do two more, and then we'll do things I like and things that I hate and head out of here for the day. And this will be on the same line. From the Post-Millennial, Trans Day of Vengeance will happen at Supreme Court. Andy Ngo, MTG Twitter account still suspended for warning the public. From Libby Emmons, Antifa-affiliated group All Rights DC and the Trans Radical Activist Network has been planning what they're calling a Trans Day of Vengeance in DC for April 1st. The event is reportedly still going forward despite the recent deadly vengeance carried out by a trans person on Monday. Evidence of the action was seen on Twitter as the publicizing of the event continues on social media despite Twitter's lockout of accounts reporting on the intention towards violence. The protest event has been scheduled for some time, and throughout March, the flyer was circulating online. The event was planned for Saturday at the Supreme Court. Ironically, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of employment protections for trans persons in the Bostock case. Tran will be hosting an event in D.C., time and location on 4/1 at 11 a.m. in front of the SCOTUS. The online event will be hosted on 4/1, time TBA. The protest is about unity, not inciting violence. Tran does not encourage violence and is not welcome at this event, they write on their site. They write that the time is now because the trans, non-binary, gender, non-conforming, intersex communities are facing astronomical amounts of hate from the world. They cite bills that have been passed or proposed in states across the U.S. that prohibit child sex changes and classify the prohibition of the medical mutilation of children as hate against their community. At Trans Radical Activist Network, we are the movement builders, reads their mission. Our sole purpose for existing is trans liberation. In order to achieve this aim, we take control of our narrative, advocate for policies that protect the rights of trans, non-binary, gender, non-conforming people, facilitate mutual support, and educate ourselves in fostering healthy, sustainable communities. We fight all isms of the world that are designed to restrict the rights of marginalized groups. We transcend all boundaries. We are the Trans Radical Activist Network. Well, I'm going to get some popcorn to see what happens when they actually turn violent. Aren't you? Here's the part. Here's why I know there's going to be violence. Trans Radical Network, another aggressive trans activist group, also posted on Twitter that hate has consequences in response to school shooting, saying to prepare to defend yourself now. This weekend has already provided 2 crystal clear reasons why we need to be prepared to defend ourselves at a moment's notice against Nazis and fascists. Don't get scared, get prepared. Well, we'll see. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you that something's going to pop off, but if that's the rhetoric they're putting out, we're just going to have to watch and see. And lastly, we're going to do this one here from the New York Post. Nashville shooter Audrey Hale's manifesto to be released after FBI review. Edit. Oops. I'm sorry. From Stephanie Pagones. There's the MAGA hat right there. From Stephanie Pagones. Nashville school shooter Audrey Hale's manifesto is set to be released to the public after the FBI and its highly skilled team of criminal profilers analyze its contents. A Nashville City Council member revealed to the Post. My thing here is, my big thing here is this is how I know that this is devastating to the narrative, because the FBI is going to go through it, and the New York Post, ABC, CBS, CNN, etc. are going to put out the points that fit with their narratives. If there was any sort of the Jews, the blacks, or anything else like that in there, this manifesto would have been leaked online within 10.5 seconds of the shooting starting. But now they have to go back and sanitize it and get all of the anti-Christian rhetoric out of it before they can come back out and release it out to the public. Alright, let's do a couple things that I like and a few things that I hate, and we'll head out of here for the day. Alright, thing that I like, number 1, going back to the Trump arrest. DeSantis. Now mind you, this is probably a little bit too little too late. I'm going to come right out and say it. But he is doing the politically expedient thing at this point. DeSantis putting this tweet out, saying, "The weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head. It is un-American. The Soros-backed Manhattan DA has consistently bent the law to downgrade felonies and to excuse criminal misconduct. Yet now he is stretching the law to target a political opponent. Florida will not assist in the extradition request given the questionable circumstances at issue with the Soros-backed Manhattan prosecutor and its political agenda." Now, this isn't saying that they can't go down there and get him, but they're saying Florida will not assist. They won't go down there and arrest Trump and put him on the paddy wagon and send him back up to New York. And again, he's coming out with a statement almost immediately because he got raked over the coals for not doing it soon enough the last time through. It does look like Trump is planning to surrender for this, but we'll see what happens with that. And a headline that is just, especially given what we just talked about here, that is just too juicy not to put in here. This is beyond parody at this point. New York Post reports, trans woman left sobbing at JFK airport after TSA hit her in the testicles. Yes, you read that correctly, and I read that correctly too, from Patrick Riley. A transgender woman was left in tears at JFK after she claimed a TSA agent punched her in the testicles while she was going through security, the Daily Mail reported. The unidentified flyer took to social media to vent about the incident, which she said the agent humiliated her in front of everyone in a series of posts that have since been deleted, according to the outlet. "Hi, so a TSA agent at JFK punched me in the genitalia, yelling at me for having a penis, and humiliated me in front of everyone after I told her to please stop," she captioned a photo of her crying in the airport bathroom, according to a screenshot of the post. But the embarrassment didn't stop there, according to the woman. The TSA agent followed me into the women's bathroom and began talking about me to a coworker while I sobbed in the stall, she wrote, asking friends for advice as what she should do. In a follow-up post, she said she was left crying for over an hour and said, "My balls still hurt so bad," according to a screenshot from the Daily Mail. She does not want the TSA agent to be fired, she said in a separate post, but wanted her educated and the entirety of the TSA abolished altogether. Well, that last part, actually her and I are in agreement over. I want the entirety of the TSA abolished as well. As far as this goes, though, the thing with this is, we're beyond parody at this point. Yes, the TSA agent should be fired, absolutely. Any assault against somebody that's coming in here should be immediately, especially for a government job. You're done. You're gone. But I just wanted to put this on here because this is just so beyond parody. This is what we're getting here, is absolute absurdity like this in headlines. And the last thing that I like, I don't normally advocate for the state to hand down punishment. Number one, it takes for absolute ever, with appeal after appeal after appeal. But it also, they go out here and they make these big spectacles out of putting a lethal injection into somebody's arm. Now, Idaho has come out and tried to streamline this just a little bit here. From the Associated Press, Idaho governor signs firing squad execution bill into law. Republican Governor Brad Little signed a law allowing execution by firing squad, making Idaho the latest state to turn to older methods of capital punishment amid a nationwide shortage of lethal injection drugs. The legislature passed the measure in March 20th with a veto-proof majority. Under it, firing squads will be used only if the state cannot obtain the drugs needed for lethal injections. Well, it's one way. Pharmaceutical companies increasingly have barred executioners from using their drugs, saying that they were meant to save lives. One Idaho death row inmate has already had his execution postponed reportedly because of the drug scarcity. The shortage has prompted other states in recent years to revive older methods of execution. Only Mississippi, Utah, Oklahoma, and South Carolina have laws allowing firing squads if other execution methods are unavailable, according to the Death Penalty Information Center. South Carolina's law is on hold pending the outcome of legal challenges. Some states began refurbishing electric chairs as standbys for when lethal drugs are unavailable. Others have considered, and at times used, largely untested execution methods. In 2018, Nevada executed Carrie Dean Moore with a never-before-tried drug combination that included a powerful synthetic opioid, fentanyl. Alabama has built a system for executing people using nitrogen gas to induce hypoxia, but has not been used. See, the thing with using like fentanyl and nitrogen gas and hypoxia is they're kind of slow, torturous, and painful ways to die. I still stand against the government using its means to kill people. There's just way too many ways for things to be wrong. But if they have to do it, honestly, unless you have a bad shot in your firing squad, or several bad shots in your firing squad, you stand up there with a blindfold on, you know you're on death row, you know you're going to die. And then it happens, and you're looking at St. Peter. You don't suffer. It's over. It's quick. It's, for the most part, painless. I would rather they do away with it altogether. But if they have to do it, let it be quick and painless and easy. Let's do a couple things that I hate. Thing that I hate, number one, comes from Chick-fil-A. Pilar Arias reports from Fox Business Chick-fil-A removing menu item effective April 3rd. Those who love a fresh bed of mixed greens, topped with a blend of shredded Monterey Jack and cheddar cheeses, and grape tomatoes from Chick-fil-A have just days to enjoy the menu item before it's gone for good. Which is lame, by the way. I'm not big on the tomatoes, but I do enjoy these other things. The fast food giant will no longer offer a side salad from its list of menu options starting April 3rd. The item has been enjoyed by customers in some form or another for at least the last decade. Currently it's prepared fresh daily, served with charred tomato, crispy red bell peppers, and a choice of dressing according to Chick-fil-A's website, and it's absolutely delicious too, by the way. The Atlanta chain is giving out flyers to customers currently ordering the item, informing them about the impending change. Serving guests at the heart of all that we do at Chick-fil-A, the fast food chain said in a statement to Fox. In order for our restaurant team members to continue to deliver quality food and signature hospitality, at times we have to make difficult decisions to help simplify our menu. The company said it will instead increase the size of the kale crunch side to a large, which could serve as an alternative for some guests. Customers craving more salad options after April 3rd can choose a Cobb salad, spicy Southwest chicken salad, or market salad, all entrees, but not a side. I am probably going back keto at this point. I'm having such a reaction to wheat right now that I need to step back and do something. Which is lame because I love pretzels. And part of this does kick Chick-fil-A out as an option for me, which honestly they were. The grilled chicken nuggets, the grilled chicken tenders, and the grilled chicken, well, not sandwich obviously, because of the bread, but grilled chicken sandwich without a bun with lettuce around it. Those are all fantastic options that have helped me stay on my diet on and off for the years that I've been on it. And I would get the grilled chicken nuggets with a side salad like this. Do I have to go up to an entree? Are you serious? I mean, I probably still will, but still. I mean, come on. Last month, Chick-fil-A announced to customers in a few markets will soon be able to try a plant-forward sandwich option that features a tender filet cut from a whole, real cauliflower. I don't know if that went anywhere. And again, yeah, I understand that going into Chick-fil-A, getting the sandwich and a bunch of fries is the American dream, but some of us are trying to get beyond that, and it doesn't work for the rest of us. So, yes, this goes on to the things that I hate option. One from the Daily Mail coming to us from Grant yesterday. I reported 7 to 8 guys. Woman who joined conservative dating site reveals she sent January 6th rioters details to the FBI. If you're single, in any case, this is something you need to watch for. From Stephen M. Lepore. A woman is claiming she was able to infiltrate a conservative-leaning dating app and ended up reporting several profiles to the FBI for saying they had participated in the Selfie Fest. Ryan McEnany designed the invite-only platform called The Right Stuff in an attempt to help young conservatives find people that see the world the right way after she noticed that other dating apps had gone woke. Caitlin Berg, an ostensibly liberal woman on TikTok, said she ran a scam where she played a yeehawed version of herself to get an invitation to use the app. Well, and part of the problem was that they were so desperate for females, I'm sure they probably didn't even look. When the app first came out, I remember them talking about the Right Stuff. And it was like a 25-to-1 ratio of men to women. She said the goal was to talk to some of her Republican suitors about sex in an attempt to scare them. Berg discovered something a little more nefarious. There were so many men on that app who were at the January 6th Selfie Fest and had pictures of it. I started screenshotting their profiles, matching, and asking their last name, which, if they're asking for your last name, by the way, my last date, I made believe, we finished dinner and everything, and she brought a chaperone, which was really weird, but I made believe that I was still into this girl at the end of the last date. That girl was so... You guys know the story why I don't use my first name. And also why my last name is not on sites like these. This woman made such a massive deal about finding out what my first name was. I just knew. Like, we can't do this. They always say, oh, we're going to go run CCAP, we're going to do this or anything that. If you're not comfortable giving your last name, don't. If somebody's demanding it, there's another purpose out there. She said, in the end, having reported 7 or 8 guys. The video has since gotten about 150,000 views on the platform, and Berg has followed it up with an explainer of how she pulled it off. Many social media users made fun of the new dating service when it launched last October. After it was revealed, the app asked its users to share their thoughts on the January 6th Selfie Fest in their profiles. which you shouldn't do, no matter what the platform is. Others even joke that someone would do exactly what Berg did, saying the FBI is going to use the right stuff to catch people who are involved in the Capitol selfie fest, which, yeah, I would not be surprised to find out that there are plenty of agents themselves on the Right Stuff app. Berg went under the pseudonym Caitlin Brandy and sent an email to the company in order to get a referral code, playing on their sympathies as a supposed right-winger in New York City. I just joined from NYC, but I don't have any friends on the app and I can't get referred. Her email to the Right Stuff said, as a New Yorker, I would love the chance to meet like-minded individuals in such a liberal city. She was given the code and started to access the app within about 24 hours. So, yes. Dating blows. Dating in your late 30s blows. But you should always, always, always be cautious no matter what. It's a story that I've been waiting for weeks to get, or for days to get to rather. What is digital blackface and why is it wrong when white people use it? This is an op-ed from John Blake. Maybe you shared the viral video of Kimberly Sweet Brown Wilkins telling a reporter after narrowly escaping an apartment fire, "Ain't nobody got time for that." Perhaps you posted that meme of Tyra Banks exploding in anger on America's Next Top Model. Or maybe you simply posted popular GIFs such as the NBA great Michael Jordan crying or a drag queen RuPaul declaring, "Girl." If you're black and you've shared such images online, you'll get a pass, but if you're white, you may have inadvertently perpetrated one of the most insidious forms of contemporary racism. You may be wearing digital blackface. Digital blackface is a practice where white people co-opt online expressions of black imagery, slang, catchphrases, or culture to convey comic relief or express emotions. Dude, CNN, when they don't have anything to come back out and accuse you of for racism, they make something up. There is no such thing as digital blackface. These are all cultural icons that we know full well. We understand them. We've seen them. We took part in them. We made them as popular as where they were. If I put up the Kimberly Sweet Brown Wilkins, I'm not telling you people that I'm black. I'm saying, guys, ain't nobody got time for that shit. Another indication of CNN trying to control the meme culture, which has gotten out of their hands. Alright, and the last thing that I hate today, this one cropped up right before we got live. Might be wrong, over on Instagram. Shared this out, which, again, I talk about this because part of the problem and part of the reason that we have things like The Right Stuff, which was an FBI honeypot to begin with, but part of the reason that we had things like that is because it's become next to impossible to approach a woman just out on the street unless you are an absolute 100% top of the line market Chad. I mean, you've got these women in the gyms who are posting videos of uninterested men saying, "Why is he staring at me?" while she's got her yoga pants literally up her ass. I remember, this wasn't even that long ago. Back in 2008, one of my revivals into Christianity, actually. Just sitting down with a girl who was randomly sitting by herself in a Culver's, starting up a conversation, becoming really good friends with her for a while. Dating both her and her sister, which they were twins. Identical twins. At different times. Not into that shit. And it used to be so easy. Hell, at that same Culver's years before, I went in to go get some ice cream with my cousin, and then went back to go get something that they had forgotten, and then went back again because the younger one, my cousin's younger sister, who was also my cousin, had also requested something. Wound up getting a date from the girl at the counter, who had expressed the opinion that I'd only gone back there the 3 times because I was into her, which was kind of true, but regardless. I mean, these are things you used to be able to do on the street, but because of people like this, people have had to run to Tinder or Hinge or things like that instead of going and doing it the old-fashioned way. And then we wonder, absolutely, why our parents get so disappointed in us when we bring home our Tinder date. But let's watch this little bit of insanity.
It went fine, and I'm going to tell you why it went fine and how to address it, because it was in a book I read, and this is how you're supposed to address it, but it scared me. I'm literally shaking. So this guy, I'm alone with my son, by myself, a woman, and a male approached me in a parking lot. He's, "Excuse me, miss," and I don't know why in the hell he was approaching me or what he was trying to do. And before he was probably 30 feet from me when he said, "Excuse me, ma'am," and I turned around and I literally yelled at him and I said, "Do not approach me." And he immediately started going in the other direction, and I just kept saying it over and over and over. I said, "Do not approach me, do not approach me." And he, of course, got what the F, he started cussing and yelling, what's your problem? And I looked at him, and he actually then crossed a couple cars down from my car, and he didn't come anywhere near me. He crossed a couple cars down from my car and was like, continuing to cuss and say, "What's your problem?" And I said, "You do not approach women in a parking lot." I just kept saying, "Do not approach me. You do not approach women in a parking lot," yelling it. No male should ever approach a woman in a parking lot, ever. No male should ever approach a woman in a parking lot. And if a male does approach you, you need to turn around and use the strongest voice that you can possibly use with them. Don't be polite. They need to literally scream. I'm literally shaking right now because I just had a man approach me.
That is the reason. And nobody thinks that they can go up and start up a conversation anymore. And part of the reason I think why most of us are buried in our phones at this point, whereas we didn't used to be that way so long ago. I understand situational awareness. I do. I spew views that can be construed as right-wing online. I am always looking over my shoulder. And trust me, I'm going to say right off the bat, if somebody does yell, "Hey, you," at me for any reason whatsoever while I'm in a mall, if anybody goes to malls anymore, or in a parking lot, especially at night. I mean, I had a guy come up and try to panhandle me in Madison one time. The hand goes right here first. I should probably see what the screen is here. Yeah, the hand goes behind me first, where the concealed piece stays. And if it's not there, or for whatever reason, there is typically also, because I'm from the country, buck knife in the pocket. And I'll usually hook my thumb around that. But I'm not going to I'm not going to let politeness go away. There is a level of politeness that should be expected in our society. Situational awareness, yes, but also politeness. And that's gone out the window at this point. And also, this is the worst part of this. We don't know what the person's motivations were at all. He might have been going to try to tell her not to get in her car because there was a murder in the back seat or something like that. And we might not be seeing this TikTok because of that. Or that she's got a taillight out or something or other. But this kind of person too, especially with a kid, I guarantee if some jacked 6'4" Chad had been, she'd have turned around and seen some jacked 6'4" Chad behind her, it wouldn't have been my strongest words and saying you do not approach a woman in a parking lot. I can see through this woman. I know this type of woman. I've gone out with this kind of woman. And instead the reaction would have been, "What you don't say." So, that is things that I hate. Alright, we're done for this. We went to almost 9. I don't have to get dinner, so we're going to finish out the day here. Probably going to jump into a a voice chat. I don't know if it'll be in my Discord, but I think it'll be somewhere in there. I saw my boy Spartacus in another one, so I want to see if he's still there. I miss Spartacus. I tried to get him up here at one point. He's doing well now, but I desperately tried to get him up here for a bit. It's part of the reason that I moved, because I knew that I couldn't go and run out and get a house where I was, and I felt powerless at that point. But anyway, let's throw up some outro music. Let's head out of here for the day. Not a lively conversation tonight. We got to get some more conversation going. A few lurkers, though. And lurkers are welcome, too. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by, hung out, chatted in the live chat. It's been a great night. We had some good times. We talked a lot about the Donald indictment. We talked a lot about the insurrections in Kentucky and Tennessee. We'll be back here tomorrow to talk about more of what's happening here. I hope that we'll talk a little bit more about what's happening with the Trans Day of Awareness, because that is something that we need to pay attention to. Absolutely. And you know they're trying to distract from this with the indictment. You know it, because that got such bad, horrifying press after the trans shooter in Nashville. But we'll be talking about that. We'll be seeing what's happening here. Got a couple more to go over here from today as well, so we'll go over some of that. The train derailment we didn't get to today, so we'll talk about that. Some Betsy DeVos stuff, some AOC stuff, and more. Plus the good news of Jacob Chansley being released. I didn't even get to that either. So come back and join me here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. We will see you then. Stick around if you're on the Twitch side, and take care. Have a good night. And until tomorrow, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.